Pt.3. Hello, hello. Can you guys hear me? Yes, no, maybe. All right. Yeah, okay, my phone says that I am streaming. It should be good. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Really, I should say just gentlemen, but you know what I mean. Okay, perfect. How are you? It's been a while. Had a 1 week hiatus, and honestly, that was really helpful. Okay, so in today's stream, we're mostly gonna focus on like AI pathfinding using Navmeshes, right? Now, as you can see, I have done a bunch of stuff here in advance, right? Always include the ladies, you never know. Exactly. As you can see, I've done something like some work in advance, but I'm going to explain to you guys everything that I did. And I was hoping I would have time to start messing around with the Navmesh code proper. But I basically spent the last 3 hours, like ever since I woke up this morning, I spent all morning just setting up, like just reworking the player controls so that they could better work with like a ramp, right? So right now, if I were to press play, okay, here we have the character, you know, blah, 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 like that, okay. Here, hold on. Okay, well, I'm good. Okay, we have a few problems with the what are they called, with the abilities, but I'm gonna have to rework them eventually, so who cares. But basically, okay, here we have the character moving, and here he can like go up ramps and stuff like that, right? It's still a little clunky, but it gets the job done basically. Okay, oh, hold on, there you go, like that. Okay, perfect. Okay, you solved the slope issue for us. Kind of, but not really. Like it's really slopes are really fucking annoying, to put it mildly. Okay. So, anyways, so here, as you can see, okay, I have a nav mesh activated. Okay. And now what I'm gonna do for today's stream, it might be a bit of a, oh hey Moldy Crow, and also like Red Herring and Clark and everybody else. So basically, the idea for today's stream is to really explain what nav meshes are. I know I did it in one of my previous streams, but I'm gonna go more into detail, and especially since now I can show you properly how it looks and works, right? And we're gonna set everything up, and we're gonna do some really basic stuff. And tomorrow I'm probably hopefully gonna do something a little more interesting with the nav meshes, right? Okay, so first things first, you go here into package manager. If you don't know what package manager is, you go into window, package manager, you click on it, it's gonna open the tab, then you put it here, and then you just save it to your layout. Okay, and now here you go into the Unity registry, here AI navigation, and here it should say like download or install, something like that. Now because I have it installed, it says remove, but obviously for you guys, you're gonna have to like install it, right? And now once you've installed it, okay, oh, not this, okay, this here, go down here into this compass type of thing, okay, AI navigation it's called, right? Click on it, and then click surfaces, show nav mesh, and I also said show height mesh as well, right? Show both of these. And I also said like show walls, avoidance, path polygons, etc., etc. For now, we don't really see anything, but eventually, once we start actually implementing stuff, like you're gonna see what path polygons are, right? And then what we can do, right, is you can click here, game object, right? Or just right click here to spawn a new game object. And right at the bottom, AI, here you have these three things, right? A nav mesh surface, a nav mesh modifier volume, and a nav mesh link, right? I spawned here just a nav mesh surface, right? So right click, nav mesh surface, right? Like that. Hold on, let me just raise it up like that, right? It's this tiny little thing over here, okay? And then what I did, so here you can see there's another one, right? Hold on. So this here is the one I just spawned, and then this here is the original one that I created like this morning, okay? And now the way these things work, okay, is that this one here has all of the default settings. Here, as you can see in the nav mesh surface, what's it called? Component, right? And here, collect objects, object collection, all game objects. If you click here, you can change it to volume, current object hierarchy, nav mesh modifier, etc., etc. So if I were to say current object hierarchy, right? And then as a child, I would spawn, let's say, a cube here midair, right? I've spawned a cube midair, okay? Hold on, let me just increase its size dimensions, right? And now let me click back to the nav mesh. Oh, hey Randy, unfortunately I cannot watch your stream today because I'm at the swimming pool and I'm about to take a swim. Jesus, lucky you. Have fun streaming, have a good day. All right, thanks Mart. Enjoy your swim, you lucky bastard. Man. Anyways, I'm jealous. Yeah. All right. So, okay. So as I was saying, right, like here we have a cube that is a child of this thing, right? And we set it in the object collection, we said a current object hierarchy, right? And so now here, if I were to click bake, in theory, I've actually never used a current object hierarchy, so I'm going to try it for the first time. But if I'm not mistaken, I think it should it should bake a nav mesh on this surface, right? Yeah, there you go. Okay. Whereas if let's say I clicked all game objects and I pressed bake, see now everything, all of this is one big nav mesh. You see? All of this is one big nav mesh. Here we have some other stuff, etc., right? But now we're gonna set it back to current object hierarchy, bake, boom, okay? And so basically the nav mesh, right, here we have the blue one, here we have the pink one. I'm gonna explain to you what the color differences are in a bit, but just for now, the nav mesh here, the area that is highlighted here in blue and here in pink are basically the areas where the nav mesh agents are going to be moving, basically. Okay. Now here you have agent type, right? So this basically is like which type of agent is going to detect this nav mesh, right? So here I open the navigation, what's it called? The navigation tab. The way you can open it is let's say here in the test dummy, right? I selected this object, the test dummy, and here I just added a nav mesh agent component. So here add component nav nav mesh agent obstacle link modifier blah blah blah. We're gonna see these, maybe not all of these today, but probably today and tomorrow, right? So here you click nav and then select nav mesh agent, right? Here it says like can't be added because testDummy already contains the same component. Exactly, right? So now here you have like what agent type. Humanoid is always the default one. Humanoid is always going to exist. Then what I simply did was open agent settings. It opens this tab here. I placed it here, once again saved in my game dev tutorials layout, right? So that I can always have it. And here we have agents, right? This one is grayed out because you always have this one. This one is never going to disappear. And then here I created basic enemy, right? So now if we click back to test dummy here, and we look agent type humanoid, I can put basic enemy, basically, right? And here we have a bunch of stuff like speed, angular speed, acceleration, auto braking, radius, etc., 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 right? And now if we go here in navigation, so only one Navmesh component per game object. Well, it's because when you say Navmesh component, it's unclear because there are different types of Navmesh components, right? So that's why here when you click add nav, you have the Navmesh agent, you have the Navmesh obstacle, you have the Navmesh link, and all of these components like the modifier, modifier volume, etc., all of these are actually important, right? Like all of these do very different things, right? So the Navmesh agent is the thing that you put on objects that you want to be moving around, like individuals that you want to be moving around, right? Whereas the obstacle is going to, as it says, create an obstacle for the Navmesh agents, right? A Navmesh link allows you to link certain things, which basically allows you to create like jumping platforms, right? To allow agents to jump from one platform to the next, basically, right? Navmesh modifier, if I remember correctly, could it kind of creates like an area of effect where like you can kind of modify a specific. So let's say here, right? Let's say I put a Navmesh modifier somewhere around here, around this platform over here. Well, then the Navmesh here is going to work slightly differently from the way it normally would work, right? So stuff like that, right? But again, we're gonna see everything like one thing at a time, right? Like one by one, basically, right? And so the idea here is, if we go into the navigation here, okay, in the agents portion of the navigation tab, here we have a name, right? So let's say I can create a name here and say like agent test or whatever, right? And here I can change the radius, right? For it to be like really large but short, make it really tall, or like, well, okay, in this case it's like negative. Okay, there you go, right? To make it really small, etc., etc., right? Like that. Here, step height, basically here it shows it's like how high of a step can it move through, right? So this is when you have like steps, right? Or not walls, but like ledges and stuff like that, right? So in most AAA games, this would be like when enemies would clamber up certain things, right? And then you just associate an animation to the action, and you see like the character like clambering up a ledge or whatever, right? Drop height and jump distance, these ones are used for jumping mechanics, but we're not going to be doing that today, right? So here, let me just erase this. Here we have the basic enemy. See, I moved its slope, right? Max slope to 60, okay? Here, this slope is greater than 45 degrees, right? So let's move it to, let's say 21.8, right? And now if I go back here into my Navmesh surface, right? Here the agent type is basic enemy. What does that mean? It means that this like Navmesh section, right? Like this Navmesh surface, I mean, is only, like the pink one is only for basic enemies, right? And here it says default area, enemy area, right? So what does that mean? Okay, if we go here into the areas section, here we see the different areas, right? So we have the colors, right? And the three built-in ones are walkable, not walkable, and jump, basically, okay? And then I added a fourth one rather, which I named enemy area, right? And so here the color is like this weird pink, right? And so this is why this Navmesh surface is pink, right? Whereas like the walkable one, as we can see, it's like a light blue. So this is why this one is light blue, right? And so if we go back to here, we said, okay, which agent type? Basic enemy. What's the area, default area, enemy area, right? And then if we click here, test dummy, navigation agent, if we click on basic enemy, right? This is the way this one's gonna work, right? as I said, these are like the parameters. So what this means is that if we go here into the surface, it means that it's going to create a nav mesh for agent types basic enemy that are going to be using enemy area, right? Whereas here I could say basic enemy but walkable, right? And bake, right? So now basic enemies that are on top of this platform are going to move based on this nav mesh, whereas enemies, right? Basic enemies on this nav mesh surface are gonna move based on this nav mesh surface's parameters. Does that make sense? Right? So like you can have you can have the same agent types on different surfaces, and you can also have the same surface for different agent types, if that makes sense, right? And so basically, the way this is used, I'm going to show this eventually, but the way this is used is to mix and match nav mesh surfaces, right? In order to create more interesting like terrain and stuff like that, right? So if we go with my favorite tool, it would be the equivalent of, let's say, this, right? Like this is the nav mesh area. And then we can have, hold on, like that, right? Let's say like that. Okay, like that. Okay. Okay. And so basically what this would create is that we have the red nav mesh here that is in the same that is like in between two blue nav meshes, right? And let's see here we have a yeah, this is good. We have a player character. Oh Jesus, okay, this is not easy to see. Okay, this is easier to see. Okay, so we have the like a character right here, and let's say moving in the blue nav mesh. Hold on, if we go back here, navigation areas, here it says cost, right? They each have different costs, and so when nav mesh agents are moving around, they're using an area's costs in order to determine which way is faster and stuff like that, right? That's kind of how the AI works. It's very basic, right? So let's say the blue area has a cost of 2, and then this has a cost of 1, or actually, hold on. Oh, oops. 2, 1, 2, let's say, right? And so basically, moving from, how can I say, like, from this point here to, let's say, this one here, it would be faster. Like, it's what it's going to do is it's going to move this way, basically, right? So okay, yeah, I mis-explained it. Okay, so what I mean by faster is that it's not actually physically going to move faster, but it's going to think it moves faster because the cost is lower. You know what I mean? So that's how the NavMesh AI work. Like the way their brains work is that they're like, okay, well, this area costs 2, right? This area costs 1. This area costs 2 again. So if I were to move from this point here, like from point A to point B, right? Like that. Well, there's no problem here, right? But if I were to move from this, right, here to here, the AI would think it would be faster to do this, even though it won't necessarily. You know what I mean? But then, so the AI gives priority to lower costs. Exactly, right? But then what you can do is you can code it so that when it's inside of this area here, the red area, it will actually move faster, right? Like you can program it to move this that way so that what the player sees matches what the AI sees, if that makes sense, right? So that's the general idea behind the way this works, right? Yeah, so here we have the the area, etc., etc. Okay, hold on, let me just move this platform like that here in the air. Okay, so we have these things. Okay, and now let's go back to what I was explaining before with the Navmesh surfaces, right? As you can see, this surface here, so the surface I showed before, the current game object, right? It's current object hierarchy, right? It can be all game objects, volume, current object hierarchy, or Navmesh modifier component. This one I haven't used. I don't know how it works, so I'm not gonna explain it today. Maybe at some other stream. The volume one is probably the one I like the most, me personally, because it's the most intuitive. Not that this one isn't intuitive. This one is also fairly intuitive because it's cool to know that all of the objects in the hierarchy underneath the Navmesh surface are the only ones affected by it, right? So that's cool and that's easy to remember. But this one here is visual. So as you can see, when I select it, there's this like light blue cube around it, right? And here, if you look, so here in volume, right? When I click volume, because here when I click collect objects, there's no volume thing, right? It says include layers, right? So here I can include the different layers, right? This one here, I can also include layers, but what you can see here is it's edit the volume, right? So here, if I play around with the size on the x-axis, you see what happens with the cube on screen? It changes, right? Same thing with this, right? I can increase it, I can lower it, etc., right? And so if I were to increase it only on the x-axis and then press bake, see, now it goes, because here, this gray part here is a plane, so it still works with the plane, right? Let's go back to, let's click this again. Let's put this back to 50, how it was initially. Click bake again. And when you click bake, it just rebakes, so it creates the Navmesh, right? So I'm commenting and liking to boost our 50%. Jesus. All right, well, thank you, Zeno. I really appreciate it. And you better be there tonight, right? Because tonight at 9 p.m., I'm going to be doing a live stream on my personal channel. That's a random name for those of you interested. Okay, so here's the thing, right? Like, just pay attention, okay, to something. Do you notice any kind of difference, okay, in the Navmesh as before, right? Like before, if you remember, the slope here was covered in pink, right? Now it's not anymore. Why? Because the agent type is basic enemy. And here, when we went into agents, basic enemy, I lowered the slope below 45 degrees, right? And this slope is above 45 degrees. I don't know how many degrees it is. I just made it like visually, right? So now if I increase the slope, let's say to the max, 60, right? And here in the Navmesh surface, step height conflicts with max slope. This makes some slopes unwalkable. Consider blah, blah, blah. Okay, so boom. So see, now it baked a slope into it, right? Yeah, the slope's pink areas. Yep, exactly. Now let's look at something else. Open agent settings. Yeah, basic enemy. So what was it? Radius, drop height, max slope. I forgot how to properly do it, but basically there's a way to like modify this what's it called, this space here, right? And by the way, if you notice here, I have 4 test dummies, right? Test dummy 1, 2, 3 and 4, right? But they have like a space around them, right? Whereas test dummy 0 doesn't, right? The reason why that is because test dummy 0 has a Navmesh agent, whereas none of these do, right? So here, if I were to select test dummy 3 and give it a Navmesh agent and change it to basic enemy and then I go here into the nav mesh surface, click bake. See, now this has disappeared basically. You see what I mean? Oh, hey, Silver Sterling. Hope you're doing well. Okay. Where was I? Okay, yeah, here we changed this, the slope, etc., etc. Or increase step height. Okay, so let's increase step height to 1.5. Okay, there you go. Aha. So see, now that I've increased the step height, right? See, now this thing here has... So basically here, any Navmesh agent that's moving around would basically do this instead of moving all the way around. So now if I were to decrease the step height, let's say to 0.25, aha, see, there you go. So now if I were to actually put step height at 0 and bake, interesting. Okay. If I were to put it at 0.1, there you go. Okay. So that's an example of how we can do stuff, right? And again, the reason why I like volume Navmesh surfaces is because it automatically absorbs, like it automatically builds a nav mesh onto any surface that is inside of it, right? And now here's, hold on, let me just click on something like that. Okay, here nav mesh terrain, where is the cube? Here, this cube. Okay, we're gonna put it here as well. Okay, terrain, player interaction. Okay, hold on. Then let's click on this surface here, bake. Okay, it still hasn't baked anything here. Okay, so let me move this like that. Let me make it up like this. Okay, all right. And now let's say small platform. Okay. Okay, we have this here. Okay, player interaction. Okay, nav mesh surface, volume, use geometry, render meshes. Yup, that's good. Yeah, include layers, everything. There you go. Okay, so now it has baked it here, right? Because, oh, did the stream once again like disconnect? Okay. Okay, so the reason why this here did not have a ledge before, or rather it didn't have a nav mesh thing on it before, right? It's because here allows you to call away the small region disconnected from the larger nav mesh, right? So here, if I were to do 5, let's say 5.1. Okay, no, never mind. It still works. Okay, so it's not this. What was it? It's radius, height, step. Hold on. Area. Generate links. Render meshes. Yeah, this is good. Oops. Build height mesh. Let's see. Oh. Okay. Let's not build a height mesh. Override tile. Nope. Nope. Okay. Anyways, it's not too important. Okay. But basically, let's try. Oops. To increase the step size and see if the AI are going to be able to basically move on top of this, right? Like if it's going to visually update the nav mesh. So let's click on this. Sorry. Let's Let's increase the step to 2.5. Okay. There you go. See, so now that I've increased the step to 2.5, it kind of generates something, but not fully, right? And now let's increase the step to 5. Okay. Let's increase the step to 5. Okay. Yeah. So now, basically, the AI should be able to just move on top of these, basically. Or for like 1 or 2 seconds. All right, I must go. The hive needs me. See you tonight already. All right, take care, Zeno. Okay, so now we have this like that. Okay. All right, and now let's try and do something else that's really cool. Let's say AI Navmesh surface. Navmesh surface wall. Okay. So now let's move this. Okay, like that. Okay. And now let's rotate this. No. All right. Okay, so. Oh, fuck's sake. Okay. So now that I have rotated this thing here, okay, I took a nav mesh and I rotated it minus 90 degrees on the x-axis, which means that now the z-axis points up, the x-axis still points the same way, but the y-axis is what points forward, basically, right, or backward, okay? And now let's create a 3D object cube. Okay, let's 15 like that. Let's do 5 like that. Okay, let's move this, let's say here, like that, like a nice wall. Okay, and now let's say here we're gonna have wall movement area. Okay, or like wall area, let's say. And the cost, let's put the cost at 3. I'm just making shit up, right? Like that. And now here, let's say humanoid. Wall area. Volume. Okay. And now the volume. Okay, and now the volume, let's say. Okay, yeah, there you go. Okay, so look at the volume here, okay? If I change it on the y-axis, it's not gonna go up or down. It's going to move sideways, right? See? Like that. Okay. If I change the x-axis, it's going to move like that. And if I change the z-axis, it's going to move like that, right? So let's put it maybe 5 like that. Okay. And then 5 like that as well. Okay. And then 20, let's say 20, 7.5. Okay, like that. And let's click bake. Boom. Okay. So you see, so here if we go into areas, green is wall area that I put it, and now we have a wall area. So what this means is that when you put a humanoid agent type on the wall, it's going to be walking on the wall. Like, and its feet are going to be facing the way of the wall. Its head is going to be facing that way, basically. And you can do the same thing with ceilings, with anything, right? So that's really cool, because you can basically make like all sorts of games that rely on like 3D movement and stuff like that, like walking on ceilings and stuff like that, right? So that's really cool, you know? Okay. So now that I have more or less introduced the basics, okay, let's try and create a script for an AI that is going to follow the player, okay? Hold on, let's just do this like that, okay? Coolest thing I've seen today. All right, Well, that's good to know. Okay. But before that, actually, let me go through the code. ChatGPT did help me with it. Okay, so credit where credit is due. So this here is the old way of moving around that I created, right? And the problem with this old way, well, actually, let me show you guys. Hold on. Here, camera follows player, that, and player WASD movement. Okay, so let me show you guys. No, I believe you're red herring. I just have a way of like sounding really sarcastic and stuff. But it's because I'm a little too monotone. Okay. So here, if we go up, you see what happens? Like, yeah, right? So this doesn't work. So that's what I spent the morning doing, right? Like that, okay? And so here in the fixed update, we have the player WASD movement manager, okay? And now here, vector3 player input WASD equals new vector3. So again, on the x-axis, okay, of this vector3, okay, we're going to put a value called input.getAxis horizontal. Then here it's going to be 0, and here it's going to be input.getAxis vertical. Okay, now what do these things mean? Okay, this is an input, right? So it's based on like what something the player clicks or does, right? So if we go here into project settings, input manager, and here in the axes we have horizontal, the name horizontal, vertical, the name is vertical, and look, it says negative button, positive button, up, down. These are like the arrow keys. Same thing here, left, right. But then also alternative negative button A, alternative positive button D, etc., right? So basically what this means is that this automatically detects any input that the player does, right? Hold on. It detects any input that the player does. So when the player presses W, right? Or actually vertical. Okay, so this is horizontal. So this would be when the player presses D, it's going to be equal to 1. When the player presses A, it's going to be equal to 0, I think. Something like that, right? And the same thing here with W and S, right? Let's just go back to make sure. So vertical, yes, WS, horizontal D and A, etc., right? And it also works with joysticks, basically, okay? And so the idea is that here we basically dynamically create a vector3 called player input WASD, and we leave the Y to 0 because we don't need any input on the Y axis, right? And so then here we normalize the vector3. And then here, this is terrain mask. It's basically like to detect which layer, which like collision layer the raycast is gonna like detect, basically. Here it's the vector3 for the raycast origin, right? Here's the length of the raycast. And then here, because a raycast is basically a sort of Boolean kind of, like, okay, if we go here in the raycast manager script, right? All of my raycast scripts are like player interaction raycast, right? It's if physics.raycast, it creates the raycast, right? Blah, blah, blah. So here I just write if this, right? But kind of what Devin was showing in his streams, right? In his video about Pirate Software, he basically, like this basically means, is this true? Basically, right? And then same thing here. It's like, oh, did it collide with something that had the terrain tag, right? So basically, if this is true, right, then do whatever, right? Another way of doing it is like this here. Okay, here we have the is grounded Boolean that I created up here, right? And its default value is false. And then here I just say update its value to be equal to this thing over here, okay? Well, this thing is either true or false, basically, right? Like it's true if it hits something. it's false if it hits nothing, right? And so basically, if we have hit something that is on the terrain mask, which for now is basically just any type of terrain, right? And basically, because the raycast, okay, is here, it's the raycast origin. I should rename this to like that, raycast origin v3, right? So because, hold on, same thing here, v3, okay. Actually, let's rename this like that, okay? So because this is a vector 3, this is the point of origin, and then it goes down, it goes directly down. So that means that the raycast we're shooting, and the raycast has a length of 1.5. If it detects ground, basically, then that means we are grounded, right? Because it did connect with something. If it doesn't connect with anything, then that means we're not grounded, right? And then here, player input w ASD v3, so vector 3, dot magnitude, if it's 0, then that means that the player isn't doing any inputs. And if on top of that we are grounded, then I told it to basically do linear velocity 0 on the player rigid body, right? Because here we're moving using the rigid body of the player, okay? And so the idea is, if the player isn't doing any inputs and we are grounded, the linear velocity becomes 0, which means that the player isn't like sliding around or bouncing and stuff like that, like I showed a couple minutes ago, right? Where it was just like completely chaotic, basically, right? And then after that, we also check, is the player grounded, right? So also if there's no input, but we are grounded, stop all velocity and then return. It means we're not doing the rest of the code here, right? Hold on, this one is actually not good, so let's just erase it like that. Is there anything else? Yes, this as well. This I ended up just incorporating it here because it wasn't working properly, basically. Or rather, no, it's not true. It's not that it wasn't working properly. It's that this to me is not as, like, I'm not used to using these types of things. So basically this here and this here is the same as this, basically, okay? Like that, okay? Or actually this one I can keep it. The previous code I erased wasn't working, so it's not worth keeping. Okay, so the idea here is the player is doing some kind of input, so the magnitude is not 0, okay? But are we grounded? If we are grounded, then linear damping is 10, which means that it's going to limit how much we're falling and sliding and bouncing, okay? And then here what it does is vector 3 ground normal, hit info.normal. So what this means is basically like, yeah, the normal of the surface, the ray hit, basically. So here in hit info, okay, it's just the name given to the thing that the raycast hit. Me and my raycast things, I usually called it mouse coordinates, right? But anyways, it's the same. It's just a name given to the raycast. And basically, hold on, let me just show you. Here I said raycast hit, mouse coordinates, and I just use out mouse coordinates, etc., etc. So here the normal, it's basically like the, not necessarily the pixel, but like the what's it called? It's like the, basically like the point on the surface, right? The normal of the surface the ray hit, right? So it's the exact point in 3D space where the raycast has hit, right? And then project movement vector onto the ground plane. So projected move is vector 3 dot project on plane this, okay? So this is the input, the player input, and ground normal dot normalize. So here basically what it means, let me show you in Paint. Okay, it's gonna be easier to show you this way, okay? We have ground that is like that. Okay, oops. then we have ground that is like that, and then we have, let's say, I don't know, ground that is like that, okay? What this means is the player, okay, this is the player, has a raycast, okay, that is constantly pointing 1.5 downwards, okay, like that, okay? What happens when the player is, oh, not this. What happens when the player is like that, right? Well, the raycast is also pointing this way. Okay, whoops. The raycast is still pointing downwards, right? But here it connects with the normal, okay? So like that, okay? It connects with the normal, which the normal is, it's like curved, right? So basically what this means is that when we do projected move, let's rename this to vector3, ground normal, vector3, okay? What this means is that the projected move, so let's say the projected move is going to be in orange, okay? The projected move here, like when it projects on plane, well, the plane is flat, so the move is either going to be this way, right? Or this way, right? But because the plane here is diagonal, the projected move is actually going to be like this, right? That's the projected move. And then if the player were to be here like that, okay? Like that over here. Like that. There you go. Boom. Well, then the projected move is going to be like that, basically. Does that make sense? So that's why now, like, hold on, let me do this. That's why now when I move up and down the slopes, it's going to be, hold on. Let's press play. It's not going to be like bouncing around all over the place and a bunch of crazy stuff. You see what I mean? Now there's still velocity, right? Like as you can see, like once in a while, it's still going to bounce around. So it's not perfect, but it's much better. You know what I mean? Like that, right? So it's still a little clunky, but for the sake of the what's it called, of the prototype, it's like it gets the job done, basically, you know? Okay, like that. All right. Oh, not new project. Hold on. There you go. Okay. Let's click save project. Okay, perfect. So now, okay, yeah, and let me just finish the thing here. Target position v3, player rigid body dot position plus projected move times player move speed times time dot fixed delta time, and then here it's just a function that comes with every rigid body, a move position to target position, and bada bing bada boom, it works, right? Otherwise, if there is an input, right? So if there is input, okay, but is grounded as false, then the linear damping becomes 0, and we just move flatly, right? So in other words, if the player is in the air, oh, wrong color. If the player is in the air, right? Well, this, okay, it's still down there like that. So the movement is going to be horizontal, basically, right? That's the logic. Okay, so and then here I just have the camera, the player camera object always following the player body object, right? To make sure that the camera doesn't get lost or any of that. Okay. Now let me just be right back 5 seconds. All right. Okay, so So now the next thing I'm going to do, okay, is I'm going to create a script that's going to make the yeah, air conditioning exactly, because it's getting warm in here. So the I'm going to make it so that any AI, right, like this, like any test dummy with the Navmesh agent script, okay, is going to be moving towards the player only if the player is only if the player is within detection range, basically. Okay. And once again, because I haven't had enough time, unfortunately, to practice properly with nav meshes, I'm once again going to use our best friend ChatGPT here. And I'm going to see what kind of script it's suggesting. But I asked it for a very basic script because then I'm going to start doing my own stuff with it, okay? So here, what it said was, let's copy these here like that, okay? So header, core variables, okay, like that, okay. So here we're gonna do player, public game object, player, movement object. Okay, this we're gonna erase. Detection range, we're gonna rename it to F. The secret sauce encoding. But honestly, like, again, AI is so useful for debugging and just coming up with like real, like, quick solutions to stuff, right? Like it's really useful, basically. Okay, Navmesh agent, let's rename it to this Navmesh agent. Okay, oops, there you go. This Navmesh agent. Okay, all right, yeah, in void start we can just do this like that. Okay, and then in update, what is it giving me? Use add this script to your enemy game object, assign the player transform, blah blah blah, yeah. Set the Navmesh agent properties like speed, acceleration, etc. Yeah, optional. Okay, so as I said, like it's the most basic shit, basically. Okay, so player object, so yeah, return. Okay, so actually this we're gonna do, okay, chase player, there you go. Okay, so now we're going to grab all of this, we're gonna move it here, and here we're just gonna say chase player. Okay, and now, yeah, if we don't have a player, return, oops, like that. Okay, so what's the code you're trying to go for in this specific script? Oh, yeah, for the enemy AI. What I'm going to do is a very basic script that's going to tell the enemy AI if the player is within range, like move towards the player, like really basic stuff, right? Float distance to player F, vector3 dot distance, blah blah blah, right? Here we can do dot transform dot position. Okay, and again, this vector3 dot distance is another way of calculating the distance, or we can do the other version, which is, let's say, placeholder vector3. So hold on, vector3 placeholder v3 equals let's say new vector3 transform dot position minus player object dot transform dot position. Okay, new vector3 actually equals this. Yeah, there you go. Sorry, that was my mistake. Okay, there you go. And then we can just say, yeah, float, like float, placeholder float equals, yeah, there you go. See? So like this is one way of doing it. This is another way of doing it. It really depends on what you prefer, right? But for now, let's go with the code that it provided us, right? So then distance to player is, okay, detection range, and then this Navmesh agent, there you go, stop moving if player is out of range. Okay, player, oh, let's do it like that actually. Boom. Okay. All right, so now let's test it out. Let's wait for it to compile. Okay, perfect. Okay, so here we have test dummy. Here, oh, we're gonna go into scripts, MOBA script, test dummy over here. Okay. Where is it? AI navigation. Okay, there you go. I can close this. AI navigation, and then it's going to be player character. Okay. So now let's make it 5 actually. Okay. Let's make it smaller just to be sure, basically. Okay. Okay. So for now it's not detecting us. Oh, see, so now it's following us. Okay. So let's change it to 10. 10 was actually a fairly good distance. Okay. Hold on. See, so now it's like following us, right? And if I move here, it's still following us. And now if I move down here, see, now it's gonna go here like that. Oh. Okay, now I'm outside. Okay, look. Now if I go outside, see, it's still chasing after me, but it can't exit the nav mesh basically. You see? Like that. Oh. Okay, now I'm inside of this thing here because it doesn't have a collision. Hold on, actually, like, I moved a little too quickly. Okay. Hold on. See? So now it went up the steps basically. You see? So like, yeah, Navmesh is really cool. Navmesh is one of these things, especially since this is the new Navmesh basically that they've created, right? But Navmesh is really cool, and unfortunately I'm not using it in my game because it's all about spaceships in space, right? So that's the reason why I haven't had to use Navmeshes. I haven't used Navmeshes in like 4 or 5 years, precisely because I'm not using it in my game, right? But after the game I'm currently working on, probably the next game I make, it's going to be some sort of like RPG type of thing, like top-down RPG, kind of like what we're looking at here, or maybe third person, I'm not sure yet. And I'm for sure going to be using like the Navmesh and like wall climbing or like wall running and like all sorts of other cool mechanics like that, right? But yeah, Navmesh is really cool, and back in the day it was way less intuitive. Like the last time I used it, which was in 2020, it was really way less intuitive. And you couldn't make a wall or like ceiling Navmeshes. It was really complicated. What kind of enemy AI are you using, if any? Silverstone, is that for my game or for this thing here? That for this tutorial that we're working on? Because for okay, for my game, okay, for my game, what I'm doing is something kind of similar to a Navmesh, but I basically had to create it all on my own, okay? And the idea is Actually, yeah, I'm gonna show it here in Unity. It's gonna be a little easier, okay? Let's create a 3D cube, okay? Cube, holy shit, okay. Like that over here. Let's make it 5 by 5 by 5, and let's make it materials transparent, white, transparent, okay. Okay, yeah, so it's transparent like that, okay. So the way I'm doing, so because my game is, it's all about spaceships shooting each other in space and stuff. In order to do the unit pathing for my game, like I brainstormed that stuff for like months, maybe even like a year and a half, 2 years, something like that. Like it took me a long time to like brainstorm and try different things. But basically the way I ended up doing it, right, is hold on. And when I say it took me like a year or two to like come up with it, the logic itself, it didn't take me 2 years to come up with it. I came up with it in maybe like a week, right? But it's just brainstorming different ideas, implementing them, testing them out, realizing it's not working. That took me like a solid like year and a half, right? Just brainstorming different things while also like going to work, going to the gym, sleeping, you know, like being a normal human being, right? But the general idea, okay, let's make it like that. Let's move these like that, right? More or less. Let's select these. Let's duplicate them like that. Okay, like that. Now let's select all 4 of these, right? Well, actually, yeah. With 4, it works fairly well. Okay. Actually, no. I am going to duplicate like that. Okay. Okay. So the way I've done it in my game, okay, is that each of these, let's call them movement areas. Okay. And so basically, because all of my units are basically flying units, but I also want them to be moving in 3D space, right? Actually, hold on. While we're on the topic, let me explain something. Battle Fleet Gothic. Okay, images. Battle Fleet Gothic gameplay. Okay. Okay. Or actually, okay. Let's go on YouTube. Fleet Gothic Armada 2 gameplay. Sure, whatever. Okay, let me show you some of the gameplay here. Okay, hold on. Okay, this is like a cutscene. Okay. Okay, so you see here how he probably like right clicked or something like that, right? And so even though this is supposed to be in 3D space, it's actually in 2D space. And these are like, I think this game was made in Unreal, I'm not sure, but I'm almost certain it wasn't made in Unity. Or actually, hold on. Battle Fleet Gothic 2 engine. Yeah, Unreal 4, exactly, okay. But the logic is the same, okay? So this game was made in Unreal, okay? But the logic is the same. This is, even though visually it looks like those are ships in space, they're all basically like they're on a flat nav mesh, basically, right? That's all this is. They're just on a flat nav mesh. Basically, hold on, let me see if here we can get a better idea. Let me mute it for a second, right? Yeah, so here you can see like it's even like there's a visual thing that shows that they're basically like sliding around on a nav mesh is what's happening here, right? So it's not truly 3D combat, right? And because in my game I wanted to do real proper 3D combat, one of the things I could have done was basically have a shit ton of layers, right? All stacked on top of each other, right? Like basically like layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, right? Of nav meshes, and just have my nav mesh agents just move from one to the other, right? And like back up and back down, etc., right? But I wasn't sure if it was going to work with ECS, so I didn't do it that way. And instead, and also the thing is that if I were to do it this way, the ships would still always be flat, right? So the ships would still always be like that, right? Oops, hold on. So the ships would basically be moving like that, like boom, 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 like that, right? Whereas what I wanted was for my ships to basically be moving like, let's say this is the ship, right? It's facing this way, then like it moves this way, so now the ship is like facing that way, right? Stuff like that. You see what I mean? And so the way I coded it for my game, right? Okay, it's I have these cubes or whatever that detect whenever a unit is inside of one of the cubes, okay? And then it has like a list of all of the adjacent cubes. So like this one has a list that this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and all six of these are adjacent to it. But these four, right? These four over here are not adjacent to it, right? And so basically if a unit wants to move from here to here, it's gonna do something similar to the nav mesh. It's gonna calculate like what's the cost of moving here, 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 down here, etc., and it's gonna find the lowest cost cube, and it's gonna just hop from one cube to the next, basically. And then I just make the cubes invisible in game, and that's it. Basically, that's how I've done it for aerial units, right? So that's how I would go about doing it. I'm sure there are other ways, but that's the best way I found for doing it, right? So that's how I did it in terms of AI pathing, like 3D AI pathing. And it sounds much simpler than it is, but trust me, it took me. So I started implementing it. I started properly implementing it in May, and I was done implementing it in June. So it took me about a month to implement it. It took me about 1 or 2 months to code it properly, to make sure there weren't any bugs or none of that. And then it took me another like month or maybe like 2 or 3 weeks to implement it properly, right? Okay, so hold on, let's just delete all of these. Okay. Yeah, so now we have the AI here that is following the player. Hold on. Okay, now all of these test dummies here, we can just delete them. And now what we can do, hold on, first the player object, we're going to move like that. This thing, we're also going to move it like that. So that way the nav mesh is fully good to go. And then we're going to duplicate the test dummy, okay, a bunch of times. And now if I click play, look, if I click play, they're automatically going to like push each other around, basically. Yeah, there you go. See? Here, you see how they're like pushing each other around? Right? There you go. Now, as you can see, they're kind of going through the player character, right? Hold on. They're basically moving through the player character, and the player character does not have a Navmesh agent, right? So here what I can do to click on this here, I can just do Navmesh agent, let's call it humanoid, and literally not touch anything, okay? And so now, all I did was give it a Navmesh agent, right? But the, oh, hold on, let's just rebake the surface here, bake it again. Again, it's only baked for basic enemies and enemy area, right? But that doesn't mean that other Navmesh agents can't walk on top of it, right? It just means that they can't like detect it, basically. They can't use this pink Navmesh for themselves unless I bake another Navmesh, right, into this thing, and then they would be able to use it if we code them to be able to use it, right? So now here I added a Navmesh agent, but I didn't add any surface or anything, right? But because it has a Navmesh agent, right? Hold on. Now, as you can see, hold on, let's change this to radius 1.5, hopefully. Okay, no, okay. Interesting. Okay, so actually let's change it to basic enemy. Aha, see? So now it's a little different, I think. Let's say basic enemy. Yeah, radius 1.5, radius 5, speed, and what was the, there was one, auto repath, no, base offset, okay. There was a thing I saw in one of the online tutorials. I'm gonna link the tutorials I looked at last night that were really good to teach you the basics. I'm gonna put them in the Discord server for anybody interested. But hold on, agents, radius. There was something that was like weight or something like that. Was it? Hold on. Actually, here, was it a Navmesh modifier? Add or modify object, affected agents, basic enemy, apply to children, override area, override. Yeah, no, it's not this. Oh, priority. Okay. That's what I was looking for. It's pathfinding. Okay, priority. Yeah. Okay. That's what I was looking for. Okay, priority. Okay. So here I'm gonna give it a basic enemy thing, right? Or actually no, a humanoid thing, and priority I'm gonna put let's say 5. Okay. Whereas all of these test dummies, their priority is 50. Okay. And basically the lower the priority number is, the easier it should be at pushing enemies, basically. Okay, so let me just click on this. Radius, let's say 1.5. Okay. Let's see now. Oh, fucking hell. Oh, shit. God damn it. Okay, hold on. I'm going to create a new agent. Open agent. Player agent. Like that. Okay. 60, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Like that. So here we're going to do player agent. Speed, blah, blah, blah. radius, okay, priority 5, perfect. So now hopefully, because remember I made it so that humanoids could walk on the wall, right? And because the wall here, it's pointing that way, then we basically fell on top of it or some shit like that, I think is what happened. I'm not sure, but that's kind of the idea. Okay, so just give me a moment. Okay, it's still not 100% working. Okay, yeah, anyways, I'm probably gonna look to fix this for tomorrow's stream just because it's not that important. But the idea is that, because I remember in the old version of the Navmesh, right, it was a bit easier to make sure that that even though you have two different types of Navmesh agents, that they wouldn't necessarily collide that close with one another, basically, right? Okay. Yeah, high quality. Okay. Oops. So like that. Okay. All right. And so basically, here the idea, right, with a nav mesh like this, okay, or like with the nav mesh, what do you call it? Like with this technology and these like mechanics, right? It's that here we can just go here and create a nav mesh surface. Let's put it at 0, 0, 0, okay, and then like that, okay, minus 40, and then make it a current object hierarchy. Okay, nav mesh MOBA lane, MOBA mid lane, let's say. Okay, let's move it here, actually, like that. Let's move it to 0 and 40. Okay, the multitude chasing you. Probably correct. Yeah. Okay, so here what I would do is, actually, let's make it like that over here. Minus 40. Okay, let's create a new game object called cube. Let's make it 0.5 minus 0.5. Let's make it 75, like that. 10. Okay, so now this here, or actually no, I'm gonna do it differently. I'm gonna make something cooler, actually, since we're today's stream is probably gonna be a bit shorter than usual. I know I've been saying this for like the last couple of streams, but it's just because I didn't have enough time to practice all of the cooler stuff, like having enemies jumping and stuff like that. So tomorrow the plan would be to start adding proper enemy movement, right? Like in the typical MOBA where you have like minion waves periodically spawning from the spawn and moving down the lanes, and the moment they detect an enemy, they start like attacking the enemy, stuff like that, right? That would be the goal for tomorrow. Yeah, shorter than usual, 3 hours later, exactly. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do, as something that's really cool, is here. Okay, we're gonna do a plane. Okay, and here we're gonna make it 75, let's say. Oh wow. Oh boy. Okay, no, that's way too. Okay, let's make it 30, like that. Okay, and 2, like that. Okay, or actually let's make it like 5, and then this thing we can move it down here. Okay, plane, or was it the terrain? Hold on. Ah, okay, no, it's a terrain, sorry. Okay, Oh boy. Yeah. Oh boy. Okay. Hold on. Let's delete this. Let's select this terrain. Oh. Okay. This terrain. Okay. Let's make it smaller. Like, way smaller. No? Fuck. Okay. I haven't touched terrains in a while. Terrain settings. Base map. Hold on. This is the maximum distance at which terrain textures will be displayed. Tree density. No, not this. Okay, terrain width. There you go. Let's make it much smaller. Oh, okay. Hey, there you go. Okay, perfect. My God. Okay. So basically, in order to create this thing, reminder, you right click whichever object you want it to be the child of. You go 3D object and then here terrain, basically, okay? This is another thing. This is basically what's used for like open world games, right? So again, this is why I said that the MOBA prototype that we're making is really going to be a prototype for the other RPG prototypes we're going to be making, okay? So let me just show you really quickly. Here, let's once again go here and slightly make it ever so slightly. No, okay, so this 50 was good. Let's make this 75 or 100. Okay, perfect. And again, the way the terrain works is that it starts from 0, 0, right? So here, if I were to make it minus 50, well, there you go. See, like it can't go below 1, basically. Okay? All right. So now, here the Navmesh, okay? We're going to make it basic enemy. Or actually, hold on. Open Navmesh agents. Let's add another agent and let's call it minion. Okay? It's going to be minion because we're making a MOBA. Yeah, let's boost it up to 60, whatever. Let's boost the step height to 1. Okay. And let's go back here. And this here, okay, let's here you're going to paint terrain. Now my thing was up to the max, right? Okay, there you go. Okay, so now here when you paint a terrain, also you need a texture. For now we don't have any texture, so that's why it's just a bunch of gray and white squares, right? But typically here you would put like grass texture and whatever the fuck else, right? Okay, like that. Raised lower terrain. Okay, perfect. And now here, this is how you do it, okay? You can start messing around and doing like all sorts of cool stuff, right? Hold on. Brush size. Like that. Actually, let's make it a bit higher, like that. Okay, no. Okay, this is good. Okay. Okay. So let's say here you have the lane. Okay, this is gonna be like the middle lane or whatever. Okay, and let's say here you have like a bunch of rocks that are gonna block the terrain. Here you have like a bunch of other rocks that are also going to block the terrain. Okay, and then I don't know, like maybe here as well, or actually here you have a few, and then here you have some more stuff. Okay, and now let's bake and see. Remember the slope degree that we added was 60 degrees here. If you look where my mouse is, it's 60 degrees. Let's make it minion. Open area settings and let's say lanes. Okay, there you go, lanes, blah 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 for minion. Current object hierarchy. Yep. Boom. See? So now it automatically generated a Navmesh for the minions, right? Bada bing, bada boom. So now, hold on, let's see. If I were to walk on top of it. So see, we as the player can kind of walk through it. Again, like it's a little buggy. It's a little weird. Ugh. Yeah. Oops, there you go. Okay. Yeah, so even we can't really walk through it, right? And the idea is that like minions wouldn't be able to follow us. Like here it's flat terrain, so they would be able to, right? And like we would be like attacking them or whatever. You see what I mean? So there you go. And so now the idea, very simply, would be to basically tell an enemy like move around a place, right? Also, do you remember how at the beginning of the stream I mentioned the show path polygons, right? Okay, so let me just, oops, detach this, okay? I'm gonna put this on another screen. So you guys are gonna be looking at the in-game, or rather the in-editor thing, okay? So let's press play, okay? A terrain to cheese. Yeah, hold on. All right, okay. So now you guys can see the player character, okay? Hold on, is it okay, hold on. Let's press pause. There you go. Hopefully it should, okay, yeah. So you see how it's showing these like arrows and stuff, right? And here it's showing where they're going, right? They're going towards my dick, right? They want my penis. Right? So they're chasing the player character, right? Okay, like that. Okay, so you see, there's like the polygon path, right? Hold on, like that, and then so you see their paths, how they're like showing in which direction they're moving and stuff. It's not the most clear thing. There you go. Okay, but hold on. Let me see if I can show carve hold. No, show walls, show avoidance. There you go. So that's the avoidance. Show walls, show neighbors. Okay. Oh yeah, query nodes. I think that's what it was looking for. Okay. Yeah, surfaces. Okay. So now let's press play. Oh, there you go. That's what I was looking for. Okay, so now you see the lines properly. So you see all of these like yellow lines. Oh fuck. Oh Jesus. Okay, hold on. So you see like those yellow lines here, that like shows you the logic of like how the AIs are thinking of looking at my character basically. Right? Like that. Or not how they're thinking of looking at my character, but how they're thinking of chasing my character basically. There you go. So yeah, so that's yeah. So so that's more or less the basics of Navmesh, right? And how it works. Like again, really basic and stuff. What I'm thinking is tomorrow can be like part 2 of like the Navmesh stuff. With like stuff like linking different nav meshes and like doing some cool stuff, right? Like maybe having an AI go from like the ground to the wall or something. Like we'll see, right? We'll see. No promises, but that's kind of the plan, right? And then maybe next week. No, fuck. Okay, because this upcoming week I'm not gonna have a lot of free time. because I'm gonna be working basically all week. So in terms of the schedule, okay, 1 week I have like I'm not working. The other week I'm doing all of my hours at my job, right? So what this means is that this upcoming week I'm basically, it's kind of gonna be radio silence. There's not even gonna be a Galaxy stream. Jesus. Yeah. So there's not even gonna be like a Galaxy stream or anything this week. And so next week I might not be prepared for some game dev streams, but again, no promises, right? Because again, at this point, I've kind of shown you guys a lot of the basics. So now we're getting into a bit more technical stuff that unfortunately I haven't touched in a long time, right? Like nav mesh, animations, all of these things I haven't touched in years. So I'm really rusty. And in the meantime, in the last like 4 or 5 years, they've changed a lot of things with them. So I kind of need to relearn them, right? But because I'm not gonna have a lot of free time this week, like I can't make any promises, right? And so I'm probably gonna make a post on the channel saying whether or not there are gonna be game dev streams next weekend. If there are not going to be game dev streams, then it's probably gonna be like either I'm gonna finish up the last stuff that I have to work on my game, or if somehow I finished it, which I doubt, it's probably going to be another Galaxy stream and stuff like that, right? And then probably 2 weekends from now is when I'm going to do the other game dev streams where I think I'm gonna show animations, right? So that way we can eventually blend nav mesh with animations to make it look cooler, you know? I think you've covered pretty much everything basis. Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing, right? So at this point, like it's almost like we're almost done. So that's why like these next couple of streams, it's getting really technical, really specific, and I don't want to waste you guys' time by like learning because like what's the point of me giving you a tutorial if I'm learning as well, right? Like it makes no sense, right? So I'd rather take the time during my weeks off where I'm not working to really properly learn what I have to learn and prepare the tutorial. So that way, when we come to the weekends like today, it's a bit of a shorter stream, but yeah, don't forget audio. So, well, that's the thing. Audio is one of those things that I have never touched, right? Like literally in the last 6 years of me doing like game dev, I haven't touched audio. So I don't even know how to do audio, right? So that's another thing that I'm gonna have to learn on my own and then show you guys what I've learned, right? But I mean, you can also always look at the game dev beginner guy in the Discord server, which speaking of, let me just put the link. Even though pretty much everybody who's watching me right now is already on the server, I'm still going to put the link to it. Hold on. Invite. There you go. Join the server, the Discord server. It's really fun. You're not gonna get groomed. We're all chill, right? But yeah. So as I was saying, the plan is next weekend. If I am streaming, it's probably either gonna be chill streams on my personal channel or Galaxy streams, and then 2 weekends from now. I'm gonna try to have animations ready, right? And for tomorrow, I'm gonna do more technical stuff with the nav meshes, which today we've seen the basics. It's really not that complicated because again, like the cool thing with nav meshes, if you look here, it's literally all you do is this nav mesh agent dot set destination, right? And if not, then reset path, right? And eventually what I'm thinking is maybe like I'm gonna create some sort of logic that's going to make the different AI have certain behaviors. Like, so for instance, when you detect the player, chase after the player. But if you also have detected enemies, chase after the enemies first. Or like if you stop detecting the player, go back to your patrol path. Stuff like that, right? Yeah, exactly. I'm growing everyone into making games. Exactly. Um, yeah, so tomorrow we're gonna check a bit more on nav meshes, and then hopefully 2 weekends from now, it's gonna be animations, basically. Um, which should be torture for me because I hate animations because I'm really bad at it. But I'm gonna show you guys how to do it anyway, just so that you guys know how to do the animations, right? We're on the Navmesh that's ready to. Exactly. Okay, so that's the plan. Um, Feel free to come hang out at. Hold on. Uh, hold on. Let me just. Oh my god, bitch. Hold on. Hold on. Let me just. Hey. Here. There you go. There you go. Here. That we're gonna be live streaming Space Marine 2 tonight at 9 p.m. Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, so that's the plan. Come hang out tonight at 9, and otherwise I'll see you guys tomorrow. Space Marine 2? What do you mean? How do you not know what Space Marine 2 is? Come on, bruh. It's a great game, one of the few good games of last year. But yeah, so that's the plan. I hope this was informative. Again, nav meshes, like they're so much easier than before. Back in the day, it was so much more difficult and it was so less intuitive, and you couldn't do cool stuff like these, right? Like nav meshes on the walls and stuff, right? So now we can do like a bunch of really cool stuff, and yeah, uh, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you guys tonight, and if not tonight, then tomorrow. All right, take care, boys, and yeah, till next time.